We've got some big changes to our Florida as is FAR bar residential sales contract. This is the contract that is used between buyers and sellers when any property is changing hands in the state of Florida in most counties. And it's a contract that we use most often. And we have two big changes to this contract that I'm going to go over, and then a couple other good to know things. The biggest change is that text messaging is not considered a form of notice. So contract has a lot of different things where you've got to provide written notice of certain conditions to the other party, sometimes upon request, and text messaging is not considered an official form of that communication. Something that good agents have been doing all along and knowing to get it in writing in an email, but now it's just black and white. Text messaging does not work. The second big change is the change to the definition of what loan approval is. Okay, so previously the loan approval would allow the appraisal to come later, and it was holding up closings, it was causing problems at the last minute, and it created a lot of issues about buyers' return of deposit if the appraisal wasn't in, and when is that going to be done, and all that good stuff. And a lot of craziness and roller coaster at the last minute. So now the loan approval deadline includes two things: the buyer's approval and a appraisal or valuation that is satisfactory to the lender. So if the buyer receives the loan approval, including the appraisal, now by the end of the loan approval period, they must give written notice to the seller that they have obtained the loan approval. And if they did not obtain the loan approval, they have two choices. If they want to move forward with the property purchase and they're confident that they will get the loan approval, then they can provide that notice and say, hey, seller, look, I didn't get my loan approval yet, but I'm really confident that it's going to be coming and I'm going to move forward with this transaction. If they don't want to move forward, if they don't have that confidence that they're going to be able to do this, or if the appraisal doesn't come in, or the appraisal's bad, so they can't get that loan approval, then they can terminate the contract, give a written cancellation, and get their full deposit back, and that seller can get that property back on the market quicker. Now, if they stay silent and the agent says nothing to the listing agent, this is huge. They now automatically are moving forward as if they are a cash buyer. They have no protections under paragraph 8B in terms of the financing contingency protections. And if they are unable to close on that property for a reason other than the seller's defaulting or the inability to deliver the property, so they are going to be losing their deposit. And this is huge, if they stay silent, the seller has 3 days during which time they can actually cancel the contract on the buyer. So not only are they at risk of the deal being canceled when they thought it was a for sure deal, but if they don't get canceled on in 3 days, they're transitioning to being a cash buyer and they don't have the protections. So this is a huge, huge, huge thing for real estate agents to know, because if you're not aware of this and you tell your client that you have financing contingency, so you're good, if anything happens, you can get your money back, you're giving bad advice, you're giving wrong information to your client, and that is a major, major problem. And you need to understand how the contract works. So you must give notice to the listing agent, letting them know whether you've obtained your loan approval or not, if you don't want to run that risk. Now, why in the world would a seller cancel the contract on the buyer, especially after it's been 30 days, right? You're almost ready to close. Well, we're in a market where the prices are going up so fast, it'll give you a nosebleed. And we've got buyers not only knocking on the door, but beating down the door in some cases. I have agents calling me every day on my pending listings saying, hey, you've been pending for a while. You think it's going to go through? You want to take a backup offer? And in the old contract, a seller's hands are tied behind their back. Once they sign that contract, they don't have a right of cancellation unless the buyer defaults. Well, now the contract has a provision where the seller can cancel the contract on the buyer if they don't give this notice. So that's a huge thing that you have to understand as a buyer's agent so that you're not misguiding your clients and you don't have a deal just pulled out, the rug pulled out from underneath you unknowingly. Those are the two big changes. There are some other smaller changes, like finally gotten rid of the intercom system being transferred in a home, and added in some things that caused confusion before, like smart doorbells, smart thermostats, flat screen TV wall mounts, the hardware for storm shutters, mailbox keys, and any of the storm protection items. So those are all assumed to convey now with the property, if not excluded. One thing that they did not add in is the washer and dryer, which has always not been added in. So this is another source of confusion for a lot of agents. Even if the listing on the MLS says washer and dryer, if you don't write it into the contract, then it doesn't stay. It's personal property. It doesn't stay with the home, even if it's there when you took a tour or went to an open house or did your inspection. That's property of the seller. Couple other little changes that take place. It's not officially closed unless all documents are in and all funds are received. The and all funds are received has been added. The ability to extend the closing date due to the lender needing to satisfy the CFPB requirements has been shortened from a 10-day extension to a 7-day extension. They've added in a paragraph about or a line in the lease after closing for vacation rentals and the estoppels for those things. Before, with the assignability, there are 3 checkboxes for assignability, and if no checkbox was checked, it was a problem because there was no default saying, like, if no box is checked, then this is the default. Now, if no box gets checked, the property is not assignable. And what does that mean? Assignable is like, I write the contract in my name of Stacy Glenn, but then later I decide that I want to take it in the name of my trust or the name of my LLC. If I don't have the buy-in from the seller that they're going to allow me to assign that contract to that other party, then I can't do it. I have to do it after closing. So that's critical if you're, doing any sort of exchange or formation of a trust or a business. They've changed the deadline for when the survey must be ordered. They've changed the default for if there's a CDD or a special assessment that you can't prepay. About closing out permits, about getting rid of the 5 p.m. deadline when the certain deadlines fall on a Saturday, Sunday, or a legal holiday. It extends to the next business day, not necessarily 5 p.m. on the next business day. It allows for escrowing of funds if the property has not been maintained. And it has included now epidemic, pandemic, government shutdowns and mandates, and civil unrest into the reasons for extension due to force majeure, other than now. Before it was just previously acts of God, hurricanes, floods, those sorts of things. And it has eliminated the checkbox on the last page of the contract, which requires the seller to check the box if they reject the offer. So they no longer have to do that. So we put a lot of measures in place to keep the deals on track, moving forward, smooth, giving the seller a right to cancel on a financing buyer if they don't give the notice, and requiring that the appraisal get in prior to the loan approval period. So my next video I'm going to do interviewing a local lender who I would like to get some advice from on how can we work with the lender partner who is not a party to the contract but must abide by the terms of the contract to make sure that we inform them, give them enough time, that they're able to meet the deadlines, and that we can get to a successful closing. So stay tuned for that video.